into a currency or not, that is not my concern. My concern is that I was less so many rupees. So I should be provided with that many number of rupees. And that would suffice as far as I am concerned.
Even though the value of those rupees
Has
has gone down very much.
Yes. Not even in the international market, in the national market too, it goes on. Sometimes increasing, but most often decreasing. But in the loan, it is the accepted principle that you never bring into debate the question of the values. Only the question of number is of concern. So if you provide me with that many rupees with which I parted, what you say, that should suffice. Whether you convert it into pounds, sterling, or dollars, American dollars, or Australian dollars, that's not my concern.
The judge also cannot allow more than that.
That is the maximum one can allow.
The amount that he has actually advanced,
Exactly.
even though it has deteriorated very much, but it can be turned
And you can't ask for more.
You will be taking much more of your time, valuable time. But the point is, you see, that gentleman who took the money.
Could you kindly come to the microphone and take a little more of my valuable time?
The point remains, the gentleman who took the money, he invested that money. He invested that money.
And that is not the concern of the loaner. Whatever he did with the money, once he loaned some money to somebody in good faith,
Yes.
that is not his concern whether he throws that money away or burns it down or does anything with that. That is not his concern. That transaction is like a loan, that's all.
Now, loaner's demand is just return me that money which is equivalent to that now. That is only return.
No, this is what we are trying to tell you. The values do not come into picture at all. The number of the currency in which the transaction was made remains fixed.
It was done
once and forever. It cannot be changed by any court of justice. If you borrowed 1,000 pounds from someone, I'm telling you the other way around.
Yes.
I'm putting you in the position of borrower, not in the position of lender.
That's right, sir.
If you borrow some money, you had borrowed some money in 1955, 1,000 pounds, and you are paying that money now, you will not pay 100,000 pounds to that person because the value of the money has decreased by that much. So today, 100,000 pounds is equivalent to 1,000 pounds. That would not go into, that is not the argument which is held there. But any court of justice. In transaction of money, whether somebody suffers a loss or does not, this is not the question anymore. The number of that currency, whatever it is, pounds or dollars, which were lent to someone, would be returned to the lender. That's all.
So one part of the same question which is left probably unanswered or which has not come into the picture. That is that is it right that the loaner can put the condition, when he is giving the loan, can he put this condition that when you will return the money, we will consider the inflation as well. We will consider the inflation, that whatever the inflation has occurred during that period.
According to Islamic jurisprudence,
Yes.
if a condition is applied to any term of contract and the condition is found to be fasid, that is not a regular valid part of such transactions, then the Court of Justice has the authority to declare that contract null and void to that extent, or that condition to be inoperative. A judge, according to the circumstances, can give a decision either in this way or the other way. But this condition which you are telling us is not an accepted normal condition of lending some loan to someone.
According to Islamic,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
Such a condition can, according to Islam, is it's not permissible.
Yes. Correct.
So, even if you have made that condition,
Yes.
you go to later on, you are read to Islamic court of justice, the judge will decide that this condition is fasid.
Correct. Yes.
It has no right to be there.
Yes.
So this condition will be considered null and void,
Yes.
declared null and void.
Yes. Thank you.
Hazur, if a MD man is going to be married by a non-MD woman and his parents with the, yes, yeah, and his parents are agreed, but they put the condition that the nikah should be said by the non-MD Maulvi, then what he should do, the MD, if this nikah is right?
Oh, what are you saying?
So,
Personal opinion.
there are some conditions that the MD man cannot.
Anything which is noble and disgraceful
Yes.
should be rejected. If you were given choice, and if there was no compulsion on you,
Yeah.
would you of volition go to a non-MD Maulvi and request him to perform your nikah ceremony? Would you?
No, I will not.
You would not.
But
So, under some compulsion, you are foregoing a principle, you are compromising your principles out of some compulsion. So, correctly speaking, strictly speaking from religious point of view, I don't issue an edict against it. Because the marriage contracts ceremonized by non-Ahmadi mullahs are also valid marriage contracts. If that is what you mean, this is my straight answer. Nobody can declare a marriage contract which is ceremonized by a non-Ahmadi mullah to be invalid. They are valid and legal. So are the marriage contracts ceremonized by Christian clergy or the Jewish clergy and the Hindu clergy and so on and so forth. Otherwise, you have, once they become Muslims, you have to repeat that and you consider their children of the previous state to be, what sort of children they are. That is not done. So as far as the marriage contract is concerned, it's absolutely all right. Any marriage ceremonized by a non-Ahmadi mullah, however hostile he is to an Ahmadi, would remain valid. But it would be so disgraceful of an Ahmadi young man to be compelled against his own principle, against his own free will, to go to a non-Ahmadi mullah and request him to ceremonize his marriage.
no, MD man will not go.
Bride rather than a bridegroom.
Thank you. Thank you.
That this woman very
Non-Ahmadi. That is prohibited.